Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world. And today we're going to talk about Bon Appetit, Your Majesty, the Tyrant Chef. And honestly, I was very surprised by this drama because it's been a while since I've enjoyed a K-drama so much. And I think it's the perfect K-drama to jump back in if you've been experiencing a drought, just like I had. And it was so nice. Like the way it's done, especially the first 6 to 8 episodes, they were so nice and comforting. And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it yet, please don't watch it before and after meals. Like watch it when you're eating, because I can tell you 100% you're going to feel hungry. Because I did. I really felt hungry when I was watching this, and I appreciate the fact that, you know, they explain what they were doing, and the cookery lessons were like recreating modern cuisine in like Joseon style. And I must say, Yuna's training as a chef, like she trained with proper chefs. It really paid off because I really enjoyed the cooking scenes. And wow, Lee Tae-min should really consider opening a mukbang channel, because those expressions, like when he was eating and he was in high heaven, like I swear to God, like I enjoyed the food just by watching his face, because he was enjoying eating it so much. And I really hope that, you know, the production people actually gave him warm hot food, because a lot of times food's been left over on the production because you have to eat it so many times for like different takes, and you don't really know when you're going to shoot it. So sometimes the food's like cold and almost not like edible, but you sort of have to like pretend to eat, which is a different story. But I really enjoyed the scenes, and I wish we could have like kept it till the end. Like we could have focused on the food, but we'll get back to that at the end. But I really appreciate the drama, and I really appreciate what they've done with it, because it's not easy adapting a webtoon and keeping its authenticity, and it's not easy condensing a story that's been made in like so many episodes for like the story to be told on paper. But like when you're seeing it on camera, it's like just 12 episodes, so you have to pick and choose what elements you get to keep and what elements you get to discard. And I think they've done a pretty good job at keeping the elements that are beneficial to the story. And I really appreciate the fact that as much as everybody enjoyed eating Yeon Ji Yeong's food, they also had a blast eating Tang Bailong and the Chinese chef's food, which tells you that, you know, even though this is a person who knows 21st century techniques and, you know, she's traveled back in time, there are still people who are able to catch up to her because they've been studying cooking for so long. They've perfected the craft and they know what they're doing, and they're capable of producing the same caliber of food that Yeon Ji Yeong is. And I really appreciated them showing Yeon Ji Yeong with like dark circles on like the last day of the cooking competition, because this girl's been like through hell and back in those 5 days to prepare for it. And even in the 3 days that she's supposed to cook, because she's short an ingredient, the main dish that's supposed to be made has to be substituted with like different stuff. She's stressed, she can't sleep properly, and she's quite wary, and you can see it in her face. And I really appreciate that, because it adds a layer to the storytelling that, you know, these people are fighting tooth and nail in order to win this competition. So they're serious about it and they've put an effort into it, and you can see it from the faces. And I really wanted to see build up something more on that, because you're telling me that you've taken this concept of having this person travel back in time and you're giving her super realistic expectations, because this girl, when she traveled back for the whole day, she didn't believe it, that, you know, I've traveled back in time. That wasn't her first inclination. She thought, well, I've maybe stumbled onto a drama set. Maybe I'm in a remote village but it doesn't have any signal. Maybe this guy has a screw loose in his head. And she went into denial. She didn't immediately jump to conclusions that, oh shit, I've transmigrated. Oh shit, I've reincarnated or something. It didn't even cross her mind, because she's like, oh, how does that even happen? That's so ridiculous. And it took her entirely to process it, until the guards literally hunted her down and captured her. That's when her denial broke and she realized, well, I've really come back in time and this is really happening to me. And I really appreciate that, because yes, some people have read about it and they immediately grasp the situation, but this is a person who's gone back in time into a real place, facing real people. It's not into a book or a novel, and these things are happening in real time. And even though she does know a little bit about history, she doesn't have all the information on the tips of her finger. So she has to really think, and sometimes she's wrong, sometimes she's right. And that really adds a layer of reality to it. Because if you had told me that, you know, I've gone back in time to a specific period, and the only thing I would know is, well, that was the time when this person existed, or that was the time when like pyramids were there, or Cleopatra was there, I would know specific facts. But beyond that, I have no idea what's going to happen, because a lot of us, we don't really pay attention to history. And it's just like an add-on that you have to study in school because you're supposed to, not because you have to, unless you're really interested or you're aiming to be a history major or work in archaeology. It's usually something not prominent in your mind. And that is very much the case with Yeon Ji Yeong, because a lot of times major events happen and she realizes afterwards, oh shit, this is supposed to happen, and it literally happens the next moment, because she's not keeping track of it. To her, it's like every single day, I just have to make it out alive. Everything that happens will happen. And that's a very realistic expectation and a very realistic reaction to a person who has her whole life set up, and then randomly one day she wakes up in an era where girls are being abducted to be selected as the king's bride. So yeah, it's a very realistic reaction and expectation of a person from like 21st century. But if I do have to nitpick, I really wanted to see more of Yeon Ji Yeong as like some person who's traveled back in time, because she's still somebody who's from the looks of it well traveled, well educated. So she's seen the world and she knows the expectations, and she's very much familiar with the role of a woman in like ancient times and like modern times. So this is something that I really wanted to see her do. I'm not saying be all up in arms and be like, oh, I'm equal, because this is a guy who will literally kill at the drop of a hat, so you can't really reason with him. But towards the end, when he's really mellowed out and he's like, I really want you to stay here with me, I really wanted Yeon Ji Yeong to tell him that, Yeon Ji, do you know from the time that I come from, women are equal to men. We don't have any restrictions. People are not allowed to get married more than once. If you have to get divorced from your wife first. And you can only get married to like one person at a time. And it would have been like, Yeon would have been properly scandalized. Like, oh dear, what are you talking about? And then, it could have been like, this is the time that I come from. And these are the things that I've done in my life. I've trained so hard to reach this position. And if you ask me to throw it all away for you to live in this era without my dad, my achievements, and basically confine me to this palace, because if I do end up getting married to you, I would be restricted, I would be caged, and I would be a flightless bird, essentially, at the whims of you and your court. Because what happened to his mum could very well happen to her. Because from the looks of it, even though Yeon likes to style himself as a tyrant emperor, his uncle is very much powerful in court, and he does come off as a puppet emperor most of the time, because he doesn't really have any real power, and his uncle has a very, very real upper hand in the entire thing. So he's asking her to stay back, even though he himself can't guarantee her safety. And it could have been a point of contention between the both of them, which I would have loved to see, rather than watching old men twittering about overthrowing the emperor multiple times throughout the series. But I guess you do you. And another thing I really wanted to see, it's like my wish list, Have you seen the poster in which Yuna is standing in her chef coat, and behind her it's like the imperial kitchen, and people are dressed like in imperial times, and below her is Yeon dressed up as his emperor and sitting on his throne looking all suave. I really wanted her to wear that chef coat in the imperial kitchen, like after a while, and everyone would have been properly scandalized, like, what are you wearing? But then Yeon Ji Yeong would have been like, I got the emperor's permissions, and it would have been so nice, because she's slowly, subconsciously, in her own way, raising the status of women around her. And I really would have liked seeing her and Kang Mok-ju sort of move on a little from the petty rivalry and have a begrudging friendship, because in a way Kang Mok-ju is a victim of a circumstance, and even though her loyalty to the uncle Joseon is commendable, really, it would have been nice to sort of see her give Kang Mok-ju her begrudging respect, because in a way she doesn't really have much choices, does she? And Kang Hana, like, she's amazing in these characters, because I remember watching her in Scarlet Heart and I really, really hated her. But then on the other hand, you realize that, she didn't really have much options. She did the best that she could for her. And over here as well, when Kang Mok-ju sees death in the face, her first reaction is, I will go out kicking and screaming, but I will go out on my own terms. And she really does that. And I guess begrudging respect for her for doing that, because even though I really hated that lady's guts, she did the best that she could for herself. And in her own story, she could have been the heroine and not the villain, because if you had shifted perspectives and made her the main character, she could have very well had like her own sob story in like ancient times and how she survived but ultimately met her downfall because a lady randomly airdropped from the sky one fine day and turned her life upside down. So you really had the potential, but that's like a sequel, prequel, whatever. But my point is that I would have really liked seeing the characters being explored more, because yes, you have court politics, yes, you have people around the king, around Kang Muk-ju, around Yeon Ji Yeong, around the grandmother, who are vying for the throne, who are contesting for the position, and they all want power. And you can see that very well. It's right in front of you. But then you don't follow through with the characters as the story progresses, because Yeon, he ordered the whole Chehon thing because he wanted to clean up the court and basically take revenge on the people that were the reason for his mother's downfall, which is very valid. But then as the story goes on, Jae-san is very clearly having the upper hand. Because are you telling me a king cannot even visit a cook in the prison? He can't even open her prison cell and take her out, even though she's a person that he has personally appointed to the kitchen. So in a way, accusing Yeon Ji Yeong of poisoning the young prince means the king ordered his brother to be poisoned, because she is very much favored and it's well known throughout the court. And he still cannot take her out of the prison. And he's very much powerless, but when Kang Muk-ju wants to murder her lady-in-waiting, even though she's the real conspirator behind the whole thing, like she's the real reason why the crown prince was poisoned, she can very well waltz into the prison, kill that lady herself, by the way, come out unscathed, and no one would know. Like the king would get to know about it the next morning that, oh shit, that lady died. And it's very stupid, honestly, because, you know, Jae-sun, he can control the palace as much as he wants, but ultimately the king also has his people around him, but they're literally no good. Like his guards, take for example, when his grandma's birthday was there and the person that he sent out to investigate his mother's death was able to waltz in with very minimal issues, and his uncle was able to replace the guards around the place where the king was performing. He's the king, right? He has his people right there, and they had no idea what was happening. And this Jae-sun guy, like he's discussing his plans within palace walls, and there are no ears. Nobody accidentally stumbles upon them. Nobody hears their plans. And even the one person who does, his friend, he immediately gets carted off to like be used as a hostage. And this has happened multiple times. Like Kang Muk-ju was able to sneak out of the palace and meet the uncle, or the uncle was able to meet her face to face on multiple occasions within and outside palace walls, and the king has absolutely no idea, even though Yeon is supposed to be extremely paranoid and he doesn't trust people that easily. So he must have eyes and ears on everybody, because he doesn't know who's on his side and who isn't, and he's still trying to find out the people who are conspirators behind his mother's death. So wouldn't that make him extremely paranoid to a degree where he's trying to control the people around the palace, but then his guards just let the whole thing go? And honestly, Yeon, you really need some new bodyguards, because your current ones clearly aren't doing much for you. And it really soured my experience a little at the end, because everything was happening just for the sake of happening. They completely discarded the characters that they had set up in the first half, and the whole cooking thing that was supposed to be the main point of the drama was sort of at the back burner, really. And it was something that sort of dragged it down a little, especially during the chef's competition, because why would a king who clearly knows about the envoy's biasness, who knows how that person is, suggest to score the dishes for both of them? Like, why would you even choose that in the first place? Because you know for a fact that that person is going to be biased, and you're not going to be biased because, you know, you're a foodie, you are happy eating food, you love it, and you being biased about food just because of who cooked it is like an insult to the food that you just ate. So obviously the king judges fairly and the envoy doesn't. But the thing is, the only reason why they even made it out was because the other person, Tang Boilong, he was righteous. And you're thinking back, it's sort of like a pattern throughout the series, because a lot of times when somebody schemes against Yeon or Yeon Ji Yeong, the only reason why they're able to break free from it or able to escape unscathed relatively is because the other person either falls through halfway, or they're righteous, or because the other person stumbles, but they do it out of the goodness of their heart, really. And it's not because they're super well informed or they have their own schemes. It's because the other party did something stupid, or other party owned up to it and let them go. And it sort of brings down the entire setup that you did in the first half. because this is a king who isn't shy of a little bloodshed, and we've seen that plenty in the first half. So it just makes me wonder, like, could it not have been sustained throughout the series? Like, not show him shed blood, but show him be able to be on par with the people who are against him, but just turn the whole thing into like a comedic thing. Like, Joseon initially wanted the throne, but now along with the throne he wants the chef, because Yeon Ji Yeong's food made him addicted to like the good food that he's been eating, and he can only have that when she's in the kitchen, when she's cooking, but she's the king's personal chef, so he needs to dethrone the king in order to take her from him. So Joseon's ambition changes from being like just the king to being the king and being the person who tastes of food every day, and actually just fit the tone of the whole show. And I wish they would have kept it like light-hearted instead of like mishmashing everything and doing a plot speedrun in the second half, because I know they don't have enough time and they have a lot of things to cover. And like I said, it's not easy trying to adapt something that already has like so much material into like 12 episodes and condensing the whole thing. So I do appreciate them in that aspect, but I really do hope that we would have seen more of cooking rather than like palace politics, because that's not what I'm here for. And again, seeing old men tittering around in the palace and grumbling and like scheming against the king, it wasn't really that much pleasurable to watch. I would have rather seen Yeon Ji Yeong and Jang Chung-sen and the whole company basically trying to make pressure cookers, but they keep bursting. So it took them a while to R&D the whole thing and the whole process, in which Yeon was put to work as well because he can't be like, I'm the king, because over here he's like a minister. So it would have been funny, and I would have really liked to see that more rather than like the whole palace politics thing. And honestly, Yeon Ji Yeong and company were able to come to the palace in like half the time, because they only had like 5 days in total to prepare for the whole thing, and I think they squandered a good portion of those days trying to fix up the menu, trying to find Jang Chung-seng, trying to get him to actually make the pressure cooker and actually having the final product. So while they were coming back to the palace, they made it just about as the competition was about to start. But this guy had to literally invent an airplane, and it took him 2 days to reach the palace. So how far were they? Because realistically, shouldn't Yeon have sent somebody over with like a fast horse to bring this person over, or just make sure that, you know, he comes home intact? Because they were literally attacked by assassins, and who's to say the Chinese envoy didn't hire more assassins to kill this person? Because, you know, he was there, he was acting suspicious, and he's trying to come back to the palace, but the whole thing was just like glossed over along with a lot of things really. But I guess we can't have it all, and I am a little bit miffed about the finale of like the way Yeon Ji Yeong gets back to like the real world, because on one hand she's very much capable of beating up people with like pots and pans, but when the real time came, she's basically like a damsel in distress, not doing anything, when it would have been the perfect opportunity for her to show off her karate chops that she learned in self-defense classes, and everyone around would have been like, how is the royal chef able to fight so well? And, you know, she would have like wounded the uncle from behind rather than like jumping in front of Yeon and hugging him. But then the uncle gets up because he's not really dead, and they didn't really verify it. And Yeon Ji Yeong sees him, and, you know, she turns around and protects him that time. Like, I'm writing my own fan fictions, I know, but wouldn't it have been much cooler? Because, you know, she's somebody who's from the 21st century, and throughout the series, I feel like we saw her lose a little bit of herself, because she was more freer. But, you know, she's adapted so well to living in the past, even though she could have had like little issues with like how to do your hair, what happens when your periods come, or how are you supposed to do certain things, because, you know, she's not used to the century, and it took her entire day to come to terms with the fact that, you know, she'd travel back in time. And I get it, in the beginning it was just survival instincts, but now when she's much more relaxed and much more open, surely her personality would have started peeking out. But the whole time she's like a proper lady of like that century, and we barely see the parts of her that were supposed to be the real Yeon Ji Yeong, like the person that she is, her real personality. And apart from like giving the queen the stink eye, she doesn't really do anything, and she can't realistically, at least not in the beginning. But like I said, I would have liked to see a little bit more of her personality as Yeon Ji Yeong, the 21st century girl, sort of shine out as the story progressed, and, you know, she won the king's favor and is more open in terms of like her actions. And Hyunho's dictation is like so good. The way she speaks, it gives me chills, because I loved the way she was speaking. Like, Like, she full on unleashed her customer service persona from King the Land. Because over there as well, I loved her dictation. Because when she's politely speaking, there's a way you have to adjust your tone. And it's very hard to do. But like when she's wishing the grandmother happy birthday, or when she's explaining dishes, or when she's talking politely, like that customer service smile and that tone, it's amazing. And it was such a treat to listen to, especially like I specifically wore headphones because I love the way she was talking. And I really, really appreciated that. And something I appreciated even more, because I know Yoon's amazing, is Lee Jae-min. Because this guy, in just under 1 month, he had to prepare for horse riding. He had to prepare for etiquette classes. He had to prepare for understanding how to walk, how to talk, how to behave as a king in that century. And under 1 month, he had to do the whole thing. And he was perfect. Like, he was the King Yeon. The way he walked, the way he spoke, the way he acted, that arrogance ingrained in his bones, because a king can never bow before anybody. And he's a crown prince. He's grown up with this mindset since childhood. So he knows from the beginning to the end that this throne is supposed to go to me. So he has that arrogance down in his bones. And it's so good to watch Lee Jae-min shine, because I remember the first time I noticed him, like, was See You in My 19th Life. And over here, like, he proper shined. And I really look forward to his future projects. Like, I was seeing articles, and like he's been receiving so many scripts after Bon Appetit, Your Majesty premiered. And I'm so happy for him. And I'm so happy for everybody, because the final episode broke records, and deservedly so, because it's actually a good drama. They did put their hearts and souls in it, and it's well made, and it's a K-drama that you would really want to watch, especially after a drought of like such a long time. And it's warm, it's nice, and it gives you the fuzzies. And even though the whole thing sort of falls off a little at the end, you don't really mind it, because over the course of the whole journey, you've had a good story. And I really appreciate that they give us a closure at the end. Everyone's nice and well in modern times. And since Yeon doesn't really have that much attachments left to him in like the olden times, he's very much happy to travel to modern times and keep Yeon Ji Yeong company. And it's so nice to see, even though Lee Jae-min stylists, please keep the gel away from him. Like, his See You in My 19th Life modern styling was so well done, and his historical styling was on point. But the gel, no, please. I know it's a personal opinion, but please don't do that to his hair. But I guess as he works in more dramas, he will slowly, by trial and error, find his own perfect styling, and hopefully with a little less gel. But yeah, I think if you really want to watch something that's well done, that's nice, and it gives you like a warm hug on a cold morning, I think Bon Appetit, Your Majesty is the perfect drama for you. It's short, 12 episodes, and doesn't really have that much filler going on. And Yeon Ji Yeong and Yeon, they're so nice, and they work so well with each other. Like, I really enjoyed their banter and the way they build up a rapport in the first 3-4 episodes. Was Yeon substituting Yeon Ji Yeong for his mum, but then slowly seeing her as she is, like a person, rather than somebody who reminds him of his mum. It was a journey, and we built it up step by step, and at the end we got to reap the rewards. And I'm really thankful for that. And I would really enjoy watching these two in another drama together, because they do work well with each other. Give it a try. Watch it. I went in blind. Like, I didn't see any trailers. I didn't see anything apart from like the poster, the basic premise, and the name of the show, and who's in it, obviously. Apart from that, I didn't watch any trailers. I just clicked on the first episode when like it was already 2 episodes in, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't even know when the 2 episodes went by. So if you're looking to watch something light, something funny, but something filling, it's a good watch. And do let me know how you found the drama, especially if you've read the original manhwa. Like, was it up to your expectations? Do you think it could have been better? Or are you quite satisfied with it? You can leave me a comment on Instagram or Twitter. My ID is talk_about_drama. And Talk About Drama is available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, and Audible. And I believe you can leave me comments on Spotify and YouTube. So yeah, do let me know. And I hope you enjoyed watching the drama as much as I did. And I will see you guys next time. Until then, I hope you're having a good day. Ciao.